Temple Academy Daycare and Learning Center is currently enrolling children 6 weeks to 12 years of age. Our professional staff is dedicated to provide a safe, fun-filled learning atmosphere. Temple Academy offers services during the spring, summer, and winter breaks. Temple Academy also accepts 4Cs applicants and offers a child referral incentive program. Call today to transform your child's daycare experience from ordinary to extraordinary.
Here is to you an invitation. It is for you a celebration. This is your day. Christ Temple welcomes you. There's no mistake. You are supposed to be here. And yes, He knows all you are going through. So He's prepared Christ Temple just for you. This is the place we lift up Jesus. This is the place we share our love. This is the place we learn to live. Christ Temple welcomes you. This is the place we lift up Jesus. This is the place we share our love. This is the place we learn to live. Christ Temple welcomes you
Moving, brothers and sisters, is a principle that we find over and over in the scriptures. You remember Elijah, who had just 48 hours ago was on top of Mount Carmel. He had just been mightily used by God to display the power of God, and he had killed 850 demons that day. I just come to let you know that if you can dispense of 850 demons, you've had a pretty good day, y'all. But 24 hours later, when Jezebel told him, "The Lord do so to me if by tomorrow you are not like one of those 850 false prophets that you killed." And brothers and sisters, though Elijah is a man of faith, and though Elijah is a man of power, yet the words of Jezebel scared the heebie-jeebies out of him. And now, brothers and sisters, less than 48 hours after that impressive victory, he's hiding out in a cave. He's thinking suicidal thoughts. He's feeling sorry for himself. And God said to Elijah, "What are you doing here? You got to move from this place. Yesterday you was on Mount Carmel and God was helping you to destroy your enemy. But today you got to fight your enemy. I ain't going to come down every day by fire. I ain't going to come down and lick up the water and kill all your enemies. There are some days that you're going to have to do something for yourself." Come on, somebody. What are you doing there in this valley when yesterday you was on top of the mountain? You touch your neighbor and say, "You got to move." Say it again, say, "You got to move." And then remember, brothers and sisters, when the children of Israel, because of the display of the miraculous at Mount Zion, these people loved that mountain. And they marched around that mountain for almost 40 years because that's the place where God thundered at them. That's the place where God gave them the 10 commandments. But you know what God said to them? He said, "This is a great mountain, but I'm going to tell you something. You have dwelt long enough at this mountain." He said, "Get up from there." He said, "Move out and turn yourselves northward. There are more mountains to conquer ahead, but you got to..." move it. All right. And now, brothers and sisters, in our anchor text, 4 men disenfranchised from their people, marginalized by their adverse circumstances. They have a physical condition and a visual malady called leprosy. Everybody say leprosy. And so, Bishop Ford, the next question I want to ask you before we get into their restoration is this most important question, and that is, how in the world did they get to be like this? How did they get like this leprosy? Bishop, how did it happen? My response to you is, who cares? How relevant is that right now? The precipitating factors and the pointing of fingers and the chance of serves him right and serves her right, really it has no place here. Not right now, brothers and sisters. When you almost ready to die and perish, who cares how you got here? Well, I don't know if I'm going to get help. Y'all ain't going to say nothing. Listen, you know what they used to tell me when I came into the church? They used to tell me that every time I was getting the flu, I could feel the body symptoms of the flu, nausea, headache, and sore throat, and snot, and all that. They would say, you don't have the flu. All you got to say, Brother Ford, is that I don't have it. You don't have it. I said, fool, I know I got it. I can see it in my hands. What I want to know is, how do I get rid of it? That ain't apropos when I'm in trouble, how I got there. I just want to know how I'm going to get out of this thing. I feel the presence of God. And so the Bible tells us that these guys were in a life-threatening situation, which was articulated by the spokesman of the group. They are at wit's end, and they are facing a deadly dilemma. They are facing a damned if you do and a damned if you don't situation. They said, if we go into the city, the famine is in the city. And if there is any food stuff in the city, they ain't going to share their food with us. For after all, we're lepers. We're the people that have to scream out, unclean, 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 before we get within 10 feet of somebody. They ain't going to give us no food. And so they looked ahead. They said, if we go for it, the Syrians who have besieged the city and who are camped just a few miles away, once they see us and recognize us as Jew boys, they will kill us. And brothers and sisters, might I make this editorial note in passing, because I believe it's apropos and applicable to your overwhelming situation. Anytime God's people face an overwhelming situation, I think that it is a bad thing when the distressed and the oppressed people of God believe that they have a better chance in the world than they do with the people of God inside the city gates. Come on, y'all ain't saying nothing. They said, I'd rather go forward to the enemy of the Lord and find some compassion before them than I would in the church. That's a bad thing, y'all. That's a bad thing. But that's the reality of the situation in which they were facing. And so they, with minimal options, one leper encouraged the other lepers and said, why sit we here until we die? They said, let's move it. If we stay here, we're going to die. If we ever get inside the city, we're going to die. Chances are the Syrians are going to kill us. But you know what? If I'm going down, I'm going down with a fight, baby. I'm going to fight. I'm going to get up from here and I'm going to move it. Come on, somebody. Yes, brothers and sisters. And you know what happened when they decided to move inside of their impossible situation? Their impossible situation became a house of miracles. Come on, somebody. Yeah, they begin to move out with God. It's just 4 lepers. It's just 4 lepers, and it's an entire encampment of trained soldiers who are waiting for the people to starve to death before they come and take their abutments and knock the doors down and kill the children of Israel. But these guys said, we're going to move from here. Our situation is overwhelming. Our situation is not going to become our permanent destination. And so they begin to move out. And God took, hadn't even been made yet, y'all, a microphone and an amplification system and 600 watts of amplification. It hadn't been even made yet, but God knew about it in the future and put it down at their feet. And so every time they made a step, it sounded like 500 people were making a step. Come on, somebody. Every time you get up from this place and move your body, something gonna happen. God is gonna bless you. The Syrian army said they must have hired a mercenary army to help them. And the Syrian army said, we got to get out of Dodge. And so the Syrian army left everything that they had, their money, their food, their clothes. They left everything, all because they decided to get up and move it. I come to tell Christ Temple that when you move it, in spite of your obstacles and the weight that you have to move. Some of us have more weight to move than others. I mean that literally and figuratively. And in spite of the fact that the odds are stacked against you and that there's an enemy in the city and that there's an enemy on the road, but the lepers said, why sit we here until we die? And that's what I heard God say. Tell Christ Temple, why sit you here until you die? You got to move. Tell your neighbor, move it. Come on, say it again. Say, move it. Come on, say it one more time. Say, move it. I want you to know that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step. Can I get a witness, somebody? And so, from a health vantage point, I prophesy to you today that if you move it, if you move your body, your mind, your finances will be transformed in the process. Oh, come on, Bishop Ford. Isn't that stretching the scriptures a bit? No, I don't think so. Look at the text. They were not just lepers. They were 4 poor lepers. But when they decided to move it, they not only found sustenance, but their financial portfolio was transformed tremendously overnight. Stuff can change just like that. When you get up and start moving out in God, things can change overnight. Tell your neighbor, my situation's getting ready to change. Say, God's getting ready to turn it around. Right now, He's. Clap your hands and give God praise up in here. Now, there are 3 things which the 4 lepers did not possess on yesterday, and you saying, "Oh, everything's going to be it." I hate it when y'all say it is what it is. No, I'm starting to say it was what it was, but God has stepped into the situation. Is what it is, meaning it ain't gonna never change. But I believe God can do the miraculous. I believe God can change stuff just like that. Hey, glory to God. So somebody say, "I'm looking for my miracle. I believe in the impossible." Yeah. There are three things which they did not possess on yesterday that is coming to them on today because of their decision to move it. Number one is overnight riches. Everybody say overnight riches. There's some things that you have to let grow for a while. You have to put your money in the bank and let it stay there for a while because early withdrawal you won't get the maturity and stuff like. But every now and then, God gives us stuff overnight. Number two, appreciation of God and a sensitivity to God's less fortunate people. See, that's what they had. Once they got their stuff, they start having a sensitivity to God's less fortunate people. He said, "Let's go and tell the king and the people who are starving in the city." And then number three, they see a connection between their physical malady and their behavior. If we remain selfish and malevolent towards God's people, it will not go well for us. Now remember, brothers and sisters, as I hasten to my close, remember the people in the city wouldn't let them inside the gate. Come on, somebody. And if they did, they would not feed the lepers. The lepers have a good reason to have a bad attitude against the people of God within the gate. You got good reason to have an attitude against some of these so-called saints in here. But hold on, brothers and sisters. It's obvious these four lepers have gotten beyond blame. They have gotten beyond shame. Have gotten beyond finger pointing. It's obvious, at least to me it is, that these four lepers were thinking about the possibility of my healing. It's more than just money. It's more than just stuff. Hey, my body can get healed in the process if I obey what the prophet says to do. Put your hands together and give God praise up in here. Let me close now and pray the break your fast prayer. I heard God say to me in prayer just this past Thursday. I just got through reading my 13 chapters that day. And I went into prayer, and immediately I heard the Lord. And he said, "Tell my people to lay aside the weight." I heard it loud and clear. Now, y'all gonna get an attitude with me, but don't do it. Please listen to me. And he told me that this is not an issue of sin. He said it's an issue of health and wealth and wholeness. Look at the passage very closely. There are two instructional and equally spiritual directives. If we follow the biblical pattern of spiritual seniority, you know what that is, don't you? The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Then the first directive here is to lay aside. Everybody shout, lay aside. That means to put some distance between you and the person, place, or thing that is prone to trip you up. You got to put some distance between that. Can I get a witness, somebody? That is what besetting sins. He said, he talks about besetting sins in that passage. The tailor-made sins, your particular weakness or proclivity in the flesh, that familiar spirit that you turn to in your moment of weakness. All runners have a weakness. Some of them get tripped up coming out of the starting gate. They can't get off the blocks fast enough. Some of them hear footsteps coming behind them. Some of them have problems when they get speed and the hurdles. And some of them don't have the closing speed to win the race. Every runner has a weakness. And so the Hebrew writer directs us to lay aside, first of all, the sin. Everybody shout the sin. And then another impediment is introduced into the equation, which has nothing whatsoever to do with sin. And here's what he says. This impediment in the flesh is entirely physical and material. Remember now the context of this passage. It's a physical fitness context. It's talking about a race. It's talking about runners. It's talking about a training regiment for athletes. The object and the subject of the discussion is the athlete, namely the athletic runner. And so in this case, it's the believers. Everybody say the believers. It's the saints of God who is in the race for the gates of heaven and is running for their life. Touch your neighbor and say, I'm running for my life. Say, I'm running for my life. And if anybody asks you, what's the matter with me? Just tell them I'm saved, I'm sanctified, and I'm running for my life. Do y'all feel me so far? All right, and so in the Message Bible, Hebrews 12 and verse number 1 and 2 says, do you see what this means? All those pioneers who blazed the way before us, all those veterans who will be cheering us on, it means we better get on with it. We need to strip down, start running, never quit, no extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race that we're in. Now, brothers and sisters, I ain't got time to go through it all, but study how the man they call the author and the finisher of our faith, study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed, that exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything and everything, the cross, the shame, whatever it was, whatever. And now that he's there in that place of honor, right beside God, when you find yourself getting slothful in your faith, come on, go over this story again and again, item by item, that long litany, come on somebody, of hostilities toward Jesus that he had to plow through in order to capture your salvation. That'll give you a shot of adrenaline in your sanctified soul. And so the directive is what we call an inside-out directive. He says, lay aside the sin. That's the stuff that's on the inside. And he says, then lay aside the weight. Both of those impostures, sin and weights, combine together sometimes to impede our running, to ensnare us in sin, and to keep us from finishing the race. Tell somebody, I got to finish this race. Come on, somebody. Come on, say, I got to lay aside the weights, the relational weights, the financial weights, the physical weights. It's got to come down in 2013. Clap your hands and give God praise up in it. So, in the interest of holistic wellness, hear ye the word of the Lord. Lay aside the weight. That's just a piece. That's just a piece. It's a significant piece of God's plan for Christ's temple this year as we engage our bodies, our mind, and spirit holistically. Everybody say, weights will come off. Spiritual weights, natural weights. We're not trying to make nobody feel bad. No, if you can't climb the steps from the basement to the first floor, don't you feel bad about that. Just feel bad at the end of this year if you can't go. Come on, somebody, because God is going to change your situation. We want you to feel good about yourself. We want you to feel good about your situation. We want you to put yourself into a position where the blessings of God can flow in your life. Come on, somebody, give him praise up in here. More marriages when the weight comes off. I promise you, I just promise right now. It's a fact. Weights are killing our people, right? Too much weight can take a toll on the body. I don't know if any of y'all remember that fight back a long time ago. They called it the Thriller in Manila. They said there was a guy named Smoking Joe Frazier, and he was fighting a guy from Louisville, Kentucky called Muhammad Ali. And in the earlier rounds, Joe was winning. Yes, he was. After the second round, he called the referee over there, and he said to him, Ali is leaning on me. And I thought to myself, well, so what? He's leaning on. No, he's not hitting me. He just gets me in the clutches and takes the weight of his 230 pounds. At that time, he started to blossom a little bit, and he laid on me. And he said, you got to get him off of me. That's what he's telling the referee. He complained second, third, fourth round because he was winning the fight. But later on in the fight, around the 6th or 7th round, he reported that he felt he couldn't raise his arm anymore. Come on, somebody. Come on, tell your neighbor that weights had taken its toll. Not just body blows, but the weight itself had taken a toll. Touch your neighbor and say, we got to.
Here is to you an invitation. It is for you a celebration. This is your day. Christ Temple welcomes you. There's no mistake. You are supposed to be here. And yes, he knows all you are going through. So he's prepared. Christ Temple just for you. This is the place we lift up Jesus. This is the place we share our love. This is the place we learn to live. Christ Temple welcomes you. This is the place we lift up Jesus. This is the place we share.
Temple Academy Daycare and Learning Center is currently enrolling children 6 weeks to 12 years of age. Our professional staff is dedicated to provide a safe, fun-filled learning atmosphere. Temple Academy offers services during the spring, summer, and winter breaks. Temple Academy also accepts 4Cs applicants and offers a child referral incentive program. Call today to transform your child's daycare experience from ordinary to extraordinary.